All right, good morning, everybody. Here's an answer for Quora that's not my expertise, but I did want to chime in a little bit briefly on it. So, someone asked, what are the dietary restrictions for Mormons? Well, this was sent to me, by the way, because I answered a question about pork, and so that's kind of the answer. That's why it came up. I guess probably something about why pork isn't kosher or something along those lines. So the question was here, what are the dietary restrictions for Mormons? Why don't they eat pork, drink coffee or tea? What other foods are forbidden for them to consume? Now, as far as I know, Mormons are allowed to consume pork. In the Mormon religion, they have what is called the word of wisdom. And most of it are basically health advice that were published, I believe, by Joseph Smith in his lifetime. Just basic advice for good practices, mostly for health reasons. So, meaning Mormons don't. My wife's an ex-Mormon, and I asked her, the similarity between the kosher laws and the word of wisdom, and she said it's really totally different from her perspective, at least. That kosher is a mitzvah, it's a means of connecting to God and following God's commandments, whereas the word of wisdom in Mormonism, even though obviously Mormons are very religious people, and it seems strange to say that something so secular would be central or in the practices of religious people like Mormons. But essentially, it's, again, you just look at the name. It's called the word of wisdom, not God's command. And so these are just like essentially good advice that Mormons follow. Again, I don't think there's any issue about pork, but I do know that smoking cigarettes is frowned on, and drinking hot stimulant drinks, and so therefore a lot of people think that Mormons can't drink any caffeine. But speaking to different Mormons about this question, actually they can have caffeine. They just cannot have, according to the word of wisdom, hot caffeinated drinks, coffee and tea. Iced tea, iced coffee seem to be okay in that tradition. Another aspect of and again, smoking cigarettes would be prohibited. And another aspect, I believe, that I've heard of, again, I'm not an expert at all in any of this. I've never read it. I only know it from what I've heard, is to fast regularly, maybe once a month or so, which is similar to tomorrow is what we call Yom Kippur Katan in the Jewish tradition. Every month, the small Yom Kippur, so to speak, to atone for the last month, and the small Day of Atonement, the minor Day of Atonement, which is a Kabbalistic tradition. It's not it's a pietist tradition. It's not something that's required like Yom Kippur is in the Jewish tradition. And some of these optional fasts are often also noted in the Jewish tradition to be for health reasons as well, and so it's really not that different in that aspect. So again, these types of things, as far as I know, are not central to Mormonism, also in the same way that kosher is more central to authentic Judaism, to Jewish law, to Judaism as a religion, and as a pious religion, as a religion that follows God's law. That's not the reason for the word of wisdom in Mormonism. Rather, like we said, it's for health and good advice and things like that. Which again, that's good for religious, lifestyle as well. There are religious reasons why one would want to be healthy and to have good advice. But nonetheless, the culture of the Mormon communities would somewhat ostracize, to a certain extent, members of the Mormon Church who don't follow Word of Wisdom, who publicly violate Word of Wisdom, meaning that they might not be excommunicated, they might still be welcome in the church and so forth, but in some Mormon communities, large Mormon communities, kids, this is what my wife told me from growing up, Mormon families won't let their kids play with the kids of other Mormons who don't follow the Word of Wisdom. And so there is a certain social and cultural aspect to following these things within that culture, within those communities, or that community, because it is more or less the main LDS Church is a unified community. I usually like to say Jewish communities and not the Jewish community, because there is no monolithic Jewish community. There are many dispersed Jewish communities that most of whom have something in common. Some do and some don't, but there isn't that type of unity, as opposed to, again, there are various LDS communities that are considered to be excommunicated from the main LDS Church. But there are, so you could say communities in that sense of the many various communities. Actually, I believe dozens and dozens of small independent LDS communities, but the main LDS Church is more or less unified, and that's the vast majority of individuals who identify with that religious movement would be in that circle. I think, though, since this Word of Wisdom is from the early parts of the church, I think all of the various aspects, all the various communities that grew out of those roots, at least from that time, as far as I know, would still be considered to be following this idea of the Word of Wisdom. Again, even if it's not viewed as a religious precept in the way that in Judaism we see our dietary laws as, still it's become so entrenched into the community as well that it is something that is one of the marks of the Mormon communities. So basically, in conclusion, the Mormons are allowed to eat pork. That I'm pretty sure. I've never heard anything different. And the understanding of not drinking hot coffee, hot tea, and smoking cigarettes is more or less a good advice for health reasons, and that's pretty much all it is as far as, but it is something that is very strong in the Mormon culture for that reason. That it's considered to be somewhat prophetic advice, I would say, even if it's not considered to be a precept. It is a path to a good life in the views of the Mormon Church, as far as I know. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're watching this. Maybe you're Mormon, and you can clarify that, and we'd love to continue whatever type of conversation. I'm sorry. Usually my videos are a little bit better. I'm a little bit tired this morning, so not quite myself. Maybe look at some of my other videos. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and we'll see you later.